Hey guys, what's going on? As mentioned in my last video, the countdown of the greatest Godzilla movies preceding Godzilla minus one, I had mentioned that I was hoping to get that video out and squared away before I did the review for minus one. I was hoping to be faster with this turnaround. I wasn't, but I did see minus one at the fan showing on Wednesday the 29th. So the benefit is that I've now had a couple days to let that kind of like marinate in my mind, to soak it all in, to absorb it. The movie that I've watched, I thought it was going to be challenging, right, in the context of things, to come back with this video and kind of give some kind of idea of where Godzilla minus one was going to fall into the overall list. Like, I mean, right? Nothing could ever top the original Godzilla from 1954 as far as being a well-crafted movie, right? Was it going to be better than Shin Godzilla? Was I going to like it more than some of the more fun movies that I liked? And with a $15 million budget, how was it going to look? How was it going to make me feel compared to seeing these MonsterVerse movies that have, big bucks thrown into them, a lot of crazy special effects? Like, was this going to look very amateurish? Guys, the answer to this is very easy. This is, in my opinion, the best Godzilla movie that's ever been made. Now, I don't like comparing it necessarily to 1954 and saying it's a better movie. Movies were made back then differently, especially in this genre. Gojira was kind of a game changer in 1954, actually totally a game changer, but I've never walked away from a monster movie feeling everything that I went through with this movie. And it's very rare circumstances that I walk away from any movie outside this genre included as enamored with the film as I was with this. I went into it, knowing that there was a lot of good buzz about it, a lot of good word of mouth. It was successful in Japan, and I still thankfully was able to go in with relatively almost no spoilers. And yet this movie blew my mind. Forget being a great Godzilla movie. This is a great movie. And it's made with a $15 million budget. And everything about it is high marks. Godzilla is absolutely menacing in this. He is everything I heard he was going to be, and then some. Everything that I hoped he would be, because this is the type of Godzilla movie I've been waiting for years. This is what I hoped 2014 was going to attempt to be before they went a completely different route. And I'm not knocking the MonsterVerse. It's a different, it's just they wanted a whole different thing. But this is what I've wanted. And I didn't expect to not only be this blown away by the Godzilla that was on screen, but the human cast of characters and the storyline and the script. I wasn't prepared to fall in love with everybody in this movie. I had so much confliction going on inside of me because I wanted everybody to win, to succeed, including Godzilla, because I'm an asshole like that, and I always will be, and I always root for Godzilla. But these characters, this story, I mean, the themes of the movie, everything is just so easy to get behind. And what I really appreciate is, us coming as Godzilla fans, we don't get great characterization from the human characters often in our film, in the Godzilla films. I mean, let's go straight for up till now, what I always considered easily the best made Godzilla movie ever made was, Godzilla 1954. That cast of characters, while all great, while acted very well, I mean, they're all basically perfect characters, right? I mean, what flaws do any of the characters in a 1954 movie had? I mean, they're all already just great. They're easy to like because there's really no flaws there. There's really nothing necessarily to relate to. They're all just like wonderful, terrific people that are just going through a horrible circumstance. Really, the only character that really kind of goes through some kind of metamorphosis is Dr. Serizawa. And you, as an audience, you understand his conflict. Like, he's worried about making a new weapon that he's going to be the father of, just like Oppenheimer is considered the father of the nuclear bomb, and how he regretted, his part in it. I don't know if regret's necessarily the right word, but how, the toll of the lives it took kind of haunted him later in his years. Dr. Serizawa was worried about being that guy for the weapon that he was going to have to use against Godzilla. It made sense for him to feel conflicted, but that was still very good characterization. But everybody else was just a normal, good, successful person in whatever they were doing in life, and they had there's a little love story in there, sure, but it's easier to write those characters, I feel. And then Shin Godzilla, it won Best Picture in Japan, and it got a lot of critical praise and audience praise as well. And it had a great cast, really good acting. It had all these things as well. But for Shin Godzilla, and this is not a fault through any of the plot or anything like that, the movie was intended to be a social commentary for the way the response was from Japan in regards to the Fukushima earthquake, right? So the characters are all at work pretty much from the start of the movie to the end. We only see these characters in the room kind of interacting with government officials and the obstacles in their way, but we don't see the flaws of those characters necessarily. We don't know which of those characters have kids or had families for the most part, and what they're sacrificing truly in their personal lives, or who they're losing. They're really, for as dark as Shin Godzilla tended to be, there was minimal focus on the loss of life that clearly had to happen. I mean, they did a good job pretty much evacuating a lot of these places after Godzilla's first attack, but later on, it's kind of not even mentioned, loss of life. So after the prime minister kind of kicks the bucket, you really don't know if any of these other characters lost anybody. And then the legendary Godzilla movies, the Hollywood Godzilla movies, any of them, you kind of we're kind of all disappointed as fans and general moviegoers of the characterization on their end, for all of the movies, starting with 1998 and then going to the new legendary verse. I mean, with the exception of Bryan Cranston in that opening scene of Godzilla 2014, you don't really feel an emotional attachment to any of the characters. They bring in talented people, Kyle Chandler, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Ken Watanabe, Charles Dance, that Vera Farmiga, whatever, from all the Conjuring movies, I believe. She's a super talented actress, but all these people are just so underutilized. And so it's not a fault of the acting standpoint. It's just that, it's really just comes to the writing of the script, I guess, because you really should. I mean, Bryan Cranston had me sold. I mean, that trailer that came out for Godzilla 2014, I was convinced was going to be like masterpiece level filmmaking, and it just wasn't. So what Takashi Yamazaki did is truly incredible, especially, and really a special shout out to him for writing this, directing this, and doing the visual effects. You would think that would be way too much for one person to take on, but it kind of goes to show, sometimes no one could appreciate and love your art like you, right? So kudos to him for sure. And just back to the Godzilla stuff, because I'm kind of clipping my own wings here. I don't really necessarily, I had no intention of making this like a spoiler video. I really wanted it to be spoiler free. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a spoiler video. There's plenty of those out there that, are already great, and I think everybody gets the point. I'm just happy enough just letting you guys know what I thought about it overall. Everybody's pretty much covered everything, I feel like, but I mean, I love how even how different Godzilla's initial, first few minutes in this movie are. it just really blew me the fuck away. And I loved every bit of it. He took risks, they took risks making this movie. They swung far and hard, and they really knocked it out of the park, for real. And everybody's already spoke so much about how Godzilla himself is portrayed. I'm not going to keep beating a dead horse, but all his scenes are really just incredible, top tier Godzilla material. And again, I really do have to focus on these human relationships, because like I said, as Godzilla fans, we've never had anything where we've had these flawed human beings kind of really just come together, and you have this idea of a community and a makeshift family coming together, like straight up like Lilo and Stitch, Ohana means family type of shit, where people are just coming together, galvanizing, and really there's not a weak character to this film. There isn't. I mean, one of the relationships that completely snuck up on is the relationship between the main star, the kamikaze pilot, and the mechanic from the beginning of the movie. From where they are in the start of the film to where they are at the end of the film, that choked me up. And that was not even probably the top 5 of true emotionally charged or emotionally driven relationships. I gotta applaud everybody in this. The little tiny actress that played Akiko, I don't know how they managed to have her own every scene that she's in, but genuinely everybody is terrific. Now, I don't know these actors and what they're famous for in Japan, but I've been led to believe, I've been told that they're all heavy hitter, young talent out in Japan. Like, they're all really, really like the cream of the crop of young talent. And it shows. These people just, there was a lot demanded of them in this role, a lot of emotion and a lot of expression. And again, this movie took such big risks, because if any of those performances come flat, it's going to ruin the fluidity of everything, and everybody just sold out completely. I couldn't be happier with this movie. And yes, this movie's firmly number 1 for me. As a Godzilla fan, it makes me appreciate and love the franchise even more, just for what this is, the potential I've always seen in it. And this is why I'm highly critical of these movies, that a lot of times, especially like a lot of like the Millennium series and stuff like that, you see they take the lazy route when it comes to making these movies. And I'm very critical of those. This movie puts it all in perspective, and it's so good that, like, I feel like there's going to be non-Godzilla fans who see this movie who are now going to want to dive into the Godzilla series. And if you had a few months ago, I would have thought that sounds amazing, but now I feel like because of this movie, it's changed the whole paradigm. And like, very few movies, I think, are going to be able to stand up to what an audience's expectation would be after watching this movie. Like, how could you ever really suggest somebody watch this movie, then go watch Godzilla 2000? You really can't. This movie has now kind of brought itself into a league all on its own. I don't know what the future holds. There was rumors when this movie was announced that this was going to jumpstart a new Godzilla series or a Toho universe. So that implies, a sequel will be in line. And after watching this movie, you could definitely see there being more movies down the line. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, this movie is also so kind of dark in some aspects that it's interesting to see what even the plan after this would be. This is now, I think, the 7th Godzilla movie I've seen in theaters, the 3rd Japanese one at that, since I did see Godzilla 2000 when it had its limited run when it first came out overseas here. So my last note on this video is just this just sitting there immersing myself and experiencing this with an audience, it really just the audience reaction to this movie was a lot different than any other Godzilla movie I've ever seen in the theater. This wasn't a popcorn flick. This wasn't, a fun action flick. This was even Shin Godzilla, I mean, people were just really animated at Shin Godzilla's weird powers and stuff like that. But this one tends to take something of you with it. It really does. It takes a lot out of you as far as like every conclusion with each character is so well earned. And honestly, it's a movie that Ishiro Honda, who directed the first Godzilla movie, I think would have been so proud to see how far this has all come. Alright guys, that's going to do it for me. Thank you guys for watching, and let me know your thoughts. Peace.